Hey everyone. I'm a little calmer today than I was in yesterday's video. Happy to be here. Today, I'm going to cover something new. So yesterday, what I did is I walked you through 2 points in your chart that kind of quietly run everything going on for you. Hey there. I see you, House of Wish. It's good to see you here. Okay, so yesterday we covered that. Now, today, what I want to do is I really want to explore for you and share for you why it is that what is some of the specific reasons why something hasn't moved for you and what actually does move the needle in terms of understanding your soul arc and how to live your life in alignment with your soul. So, hi, Catherine. Love to see you guys here. If you come up with any questions, please put them in the chat. I am just going to speak and share what's going on. So if you have questions at the end, I generally ask questions to see if there's something that has come up for you. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. And then this will be added to the rest of the videos I've been doing this week. Really happy to see you all. So this is slightly different than some of the other videos I've done because this is really speaking to what I've seen and in terms of the women that I've worked with and kind of what plays out in our life that keeps us kind of stuck in the same sort of patterns, even when we're doing all of the same work and all of the good work that we need to. And even though we're doing growth, things aren't necessarily moving the way we want them to be moving. And what I've noticed is it generally will come back to, we tend to fall back on our south node, which is stuff, the strengths our soul came in with, and not lean into our north node, which is the thing your soul wants to develop. Now, this shows up in all kinds of different ways. I literally just got off a call with somebody who did a soul arc reading. And she was talking about, do most people not move through these things? I mean, surely by the time, in her case, she was in her 70s, by the time they're here, like they've grown. And I'm like, well, actually what I see is that people do have growth in these areas, but because the way we did things is so familiar and it worked so well for us and it's what we lived from our youth, we tend to lean back in that direction rather than to lean towards the thing that feels more uncomfortable. And it shows up in fascinating ways that we justify really well, and they seem to make sense, and they appear to be strengths. And inevitably, what's actually going on is you're choosing a smaller path and not realizing it. And it looks to you and everyone else like you're choosing a bigger path and the path that you're here to walk. So I'm going to name a couple of experiences I've encountered with different women. And some of these are condensed, sorry, I'm kind of niche. They get collected together and it's maybe one composite of a woman, or it sort of maybe just one person. And I'm not naming them, but they definitely name experiences. And so first one that I want to name for you is the quintessential, I should be able to figure this out on my own. Like, this is not that complicated. The thing you're working through in your life is not that complicated. It feels like I have the experience and the knowledge and the connections and resources to figure this out on my own. And I'll tell you how this shows up for me in terms of some of the women I've worked with. And it's fascinating. I have some notes over here. That's why you see me looking over here. One of the things is there's this idea, there's this way that we have worked and earned our stripes. A lot of times I see this with professional women who've worked in a more traditional corporate-y type environment or traditional work environment, and they've ventured from there in their earlier years and have moved into something that's either more entrepreneurial, more starting their own business. It might be a new path, or they have left a field and begun a field that is really completely not considered conventional. And so there's this sense that you have this collection of wisdom and you've been putting so much energy into what you're doing, and you hit midlife anytime after 40 and you start wondering, well, what happened? How do I put these pieces together? But I should be able to figure this out on my own. I'm a smart woman. I've done good work. I know how to do these things. And so I've seen this with a lot of corporate women. I also see this with it shows up a little bit differently where someone who's done a lot of inner work or worked with therapy a lot or has worked through trauma in a really powerful way, they know a little bit. So the way it says is, I know enough of a little to get going, and I know enough about spiritual stuff to get going, and I can do my research on the spiritual front and know that I can put the pieces together, but I still feel like I should be able to figure this out on my own. Like it feels like this is attainable. And even when you have a business, on another example, as a woman who had a business, professional, had a studio, shut it down, closed it up, and knows that she has the answers inside of her, but she's really not sure what to do with this surge inside of her. And all of this comes back to, I really feel like I should be able to figure this out on my own. And generally, what I want to say is, in every one of those instances, you are right. You could be able to figure it out on your own. And every one of us does. I mean, you've lived through your life, and every year and every decade, we have more consciousness arrive on the planet. We have more wisdom. And what I'm noticing is that when we have a map of the development of our seasons of life from throughout all of our life, but in this case, I just focus on midlife from 40 to 60, then you kind of know how to figure it out on your own with a little more ease, because you can take your breadth of skills and realize, when I know what this season is asking of me, then I can travel through it more easily. So it's like having a map. So if you have a map, you know how to get from point A to point B. Otherwise, you would be going all over the place. And so even though midlife feels like you're kind of going all over the place and things are falling apart, or they're getting dissolved, or you're dealing with conflicts that you cannot mentally resolve because you're trying to navigate relationships and kids and home and dreams, ultimately, when you know what that season is asking of you, it does become a lot easier. So if this is a spiritual season, excellent. Let me give you a more concrete example. The woman I was speaking to earlier today said her daughter is 32, 33 years old. I know this is outside the scope of things, but I can look at the soul arc and say to you, oh, well, this time is designed to be hard. She needs the hard in her life in order for her to get clear about what matters to her. And so her mother, who was wrestling with her south node, the way she likes to accommodate, was feeling guilt about not moving to where her daughter lived. And I said, well, you've got two things going on. One, you're living from your south node, and that's directly opposed to what your soul is here to do. And two, it makes sense because you're leaning into your strengths and what built you. But then your daughter is at a season where it needs to be hard for her. That's what life is doing. It's saying, what really matters to you, let's apply some pressure. And that pressure looks like a really good job, or a job she doesn't like, kids, second kid on the way, relationship, where they both believe that they have to have two full-time earners. And so that creates a kind of tension for those of us who've lived through it, where you realize, oh, I see, this is a clarifying moment. It's helping you bring certain things to the foreground about what is important for you right now. And that's part of the soul arc. That's part of knowing. And so if you knew that this season is about helping you clarify your priorities, which is what happens in your mid-ish 30s, then you would approach it differently. And that happens to us throughout our seasons in our 40s and 50s as well. I'm going to do one more example, and then I'm going to open up and show you some of the soul arc over time so that you can see what that means. So yes, you can figure this out on your own. So that's point one. But when you have a map, figuring it out on your own makes it so much easier and less painful, period, all the way across the board. Now, since I'm going to be showing you, and I've been talking about the soul arc as a framework that helps you understand what your soul came in with, what your soul wants to develop, and where we have our core wound, and how to play with that entirely within our human design and astrology, it can feel like, oh, here's another framework. We have human design, we have astrology, we have whether you do the Enneagram or whether you do personality tests, or here's this way. It can feel a lot like that, because if you're like anyone who hangs out with me, we love to collect information, right? We love to see things from different angles, or learn something new, or gather new trainings, something that's feeding our soul and our expansion, right? And some good examples of this is that sometimes having a framework can be helpful. It's not just information. And in this case, one of the ways that this framework operates is that it offers you a bird's eye view. A lot of other things help you see what you're navigating here, understanding yourself. This is understanding the bigger picture that's playing out, the bigger picture of what we're developing and how and why over time specific to ourselves. So this is not generalized. When I talk about the soul arc, it is, but when you do a soul arc report or an intensive with me, you actually get it personalized specifically to you and see how it operates in your life. So I've had a really good example of someone who is a multi-category person, which means she's done, let's say, multidisciplinary, different fields of study, some conventional, some way out there, some that feel like they're really disconnected, but they're not. And she said, it's like, I have so much wisdom that it feels like I have this total knotted necklace and I don't know how to pull them apart. When you know what you're moving through, the growth you're being asked to, it makes it a lot easier to unravel those and see where you want to land. Another thing that I've heard said is that being on a spiritual path can feel very inward looking. And so when you're inward looking all the time, it's hard to like step outside, get a bird's eye view and see what's actually going on. And that does happen with the soul arc. And I will be showing you. A lot of times we have stacked wisdom. So we've had a decade or a season of this and a season of this and a season of this. And they've happened at different lives, at different times over time. And having that much wisdom and information can be paralyzing when you have it in the world of spirit, and because you can't really sort which one to use when. And when you have a framework, you can. So let me give you an example. And then we can wrap up with looking at why you don't want to wait to have your external situation sorted before you really take a look at what your soul arc is. So I'm going to open this up over here because I really want to see how you guys respond to like a chart of the soul arc. And let's see if I can pull that up. All right, how am I going to do this? I'm pulling up a different, let me go to this one. This is what I want. This one. Okay, you should be able to see this. And so what we're seeing here is this is some of the work that I've done with regard to the soul arc. And I have been building this out over time and then interpreting it and then looking at how we work it. And so the way I work with the soul arc is I'm taking this, which is the transits, the developmental arc of women, what I call the soul arc, and looking at how each one of these astrological transits apply to us individually across our work. And so when you do work with me, what I'm doing is I'm applying this over time and we're looking through seasons of our life. And then we look at the specifics. So I look at human design because that's how you decide to make decisions and grow, create in the world. And for us, most of the people showing up with me are in these areas of time, like ages of time. And so this is sort of an awakening season in your early 40s. And every one of these has a purpose. So your soul chose to be here to work through these things and live the North Node. So you start feeling in your 40s like everything starts to dissolve. It becomes permeable. You're like, things aren't landing in the same way. They don't feel solid in the same way. Your life starts asking you to live it differently. And you're like, wait, I thought I liked my life. Now why am I having to live it differently? And then you begin to start feeling that a lot of the structures that you built, your marriage, your business, your health, however you've lived, your family life, where you've lived, all of these things get tested. And so you feel pressure in them. And when you have all of these things pretty much happening simultaneously or stacked on top of each other, it feels like everything slows down and you're like, what the heck am I supposed to be doing? And it does feel like everything's stacked on top of each other. But when you see this component of actions, like all of this happening in the collective energy of your life, and you know what you're here to develop as a result of these, which is your North Node, and learn how to apply it to yourself and the specific situation, it's as though you have this magic formula of a bird's eye view. I understand what's going on. I understand which orientation I need to be shifting to. And then you can begin working with that specifically. And it does require a different orientation because you're literally orienting to doing business, doing life opposite to what you did to build your life to this point in time. And that's what can feel so challenging. So here's a good idea. Here's this awakening season. And then I call this the sharpening season, where you get to sharpen things out, and it does help you at this time. So you have an opportunity to distill the information you had from here and recognize you're going to have an opportunity to really put it into practice at this time. And one of the things that you're doing as this is happening is you're basically preparing yourself and dealing with getting ready for some of this, because you're going to be hitting your Chiron return right about 49 or so. It's a season. It's different for everyone. All of these are slightly different. That's why there's age ranges. But you're going to get pressure at this time to really sort out some core issues for yourself. And so you surface the wound, which will have started happening up in here. But here it's more a matter of let's clean out all the rest of it. Recognize that the wound you've lived with is actually your strength, and pay attention, because it will be the thing that will pull you back into living your smaller self. And then Saturn is saying, are you using the wound as an excuse to build what you have? Or are you using your wound as a growth edge, as the thing that's your strength to build from? And Saturn is this lovely planet that loves to give us our tests and our lessons. And so when you know this is coming, you have a lot more strength and fortitude to work through this. That's part of what I love about this. And then this is slipped in here because Pluto trines Pluto is a transformational aspect, and it really shows up at different seasons across the generations. So this one's just slipped in here, and there are different generations based on where your Pluto is. And so we're not going to cover this one right now. It shows up specific to each person when I do their specific reading and report. And then after your 50s, you end up in a much steadier time where you're integrating the growth that you had and integrating dealing with the fears you had. And then you begin to move into the season essentially I'm in, which I'm focused more so on this piece right here, your second Saturn return. And I really want to be living my second Saturn return from more mastery in my soul's path than in my wound and my soul's strengths. And the reason I want to do that is because it sets up the next 30 years. So by the time I get to this point, I really should have developed enough skills and enough belief in myself that I can weather Saturn saying, are you owning your authority? Are you owning your worth? Have you collected your power? Have you sorted your dreams? Can you put them into place? And have you already started doing it? And that's essentially the growth of your soul arc saying, here we go, let's get some of these things sorted. And for me, it all hinges on this point where I am now, because I've lived these previous years and can stack them together and see, oh, I see what I could have done then. I see what I should have learned here. Here's what I was afraid to deal with then, but then it showed up much later and much more painfully than I needed it to. So that's part of what the trajectory of our midlife development is about. It is not a crisis. It can feel like it. You're not broken, as the AI likes to say. You're not broken. I know you're not broken. You know you're not broken. But a lot of this, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. A lot of this is very much about recognizing that there is a way to navigate this with grace. There's a way to feel like you have more agency in your life during midlife, which can feel like you don't, because it's so confusing and there's so many things that feel like they're coming at the same time and then they don't seem to stop. So definitely want you to understand that this isn't about more information. It's about a viewpoint. It's about an orientation. And yes, you can do it alone. I never, ever tell anybody that you must work with somebody. Your soul will guide you. The question is, do you want some help navigating that a little bit more easily with a little more grace or not? That's true for all of us because we do need the reflections from someone else. Now, the last point I want to make before we take off is feeling like, okay, but before I do this, this is the concern, this is the issue I hear with people is, well, yeah, but before I do this, I need to get this other thing sorted out first. Like I really need to take care of this thing. I know it's going to help me, but I'm going to sort this other thing first. Whether it's I need to get my home life in order first so that I can focus here, or I already feel pretty contented. Everything's kind of been working out. I feel like I've got energy, but I need to take care of this thing with my mom first. And I know that once I get this sorted, then I can really focus on me. And then there's this sense of, okay, but I just need to wait until this situation with my spouse gets sorted, and then I can sort this. And what I want to kind of call out for everyone who feels like I need to get that thing sorted before I really take a look at my North Node and my Chiron and just get myself oriented differently. A lot of times that desire to sort yourself first is actually coming from either your wound or your South Node, which is a way that you've learned to operate in life, to be efficient and accomplished and confident and successful. And so you're using some of the same old tools that held you into a smaller pattern, then leaning into the thing that's scary. And there's a reason for this. And the reason is normally our nervous system can't handle it. Our nervous system wants to find stability and comfort and ease. And so when you start bumping into something that is a little more twingy, like a little more glitchy, it feels more comfortable to us to lean back into, let me get this thing sorted first before I look at that. And so I just want to make you aware, if that feels to you like this will just give me a little bit of grounding, but the situation that you need to get sorted is a situation you've been sitting with for a while, then it's often a sign you really do want to look at your North Node and potentially do some solar work to shift into the future facing direction that you want to head towards. So, all righty, I think I've pretty much covered what I wanted to cover for today. Do you all have any questions? Is there anything specific that you want to be addressing at this time? Let's check in. You might just be having this open on the app someplace, or I know this Substack shows this differently in different ways. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to invite you, if you want to come by tomorrow, I'm going to put all of these videos together in one presentation so that you can see kind of how this navigates and see the big picture of how this works for people. And then I will be inviting you, if you're interested, to do a Solarc session or a Solarc intensive. And Solarc intensive is where I work with you to actually practice living from your North Node and feeling what it feels like in your nervous system and noticing how your mind and your thought patterns will naturally take you to the old path, and learn to start spotting it so that you can do it a little differently. All right. Thank you very much for listening. If you have any questions, as always, just drop them in the comments or feel free to message me. All right. Take care, y'all. We'll see ya.